And if I told you that Lewis Hamilton, one of the most experienced and successful pilots in the history of Formula One, has been surprised by the new performance of his own team? Ferrari seems to have found the key just before Canada. Are we facing an unexpected turn in the 2025 season? Hamilton faced an SF25 that seemed to have his own life. The car was unpredictable in braking, unstable in the rear, and excessively sensitive to the change of conditions. These problems were aggravated by the geometry of the rear train, designed in part around the driving style of Charles Leclerc. While the Monegasco managed to extract performance in certain slow curves thanks to an aggressive traction, Hamilton did not find balance. In the words of the pilot himself, the car had no soul, and compared his driving with trying to maintain ice balance. The situation was criticized during the Spain Grand Prix, where he felt completely disoriented inside the cockpit. On the radio it was heard that it was the worst ever, a message that generated immediate echo throughout the paddock. The press was relentless. Analysts like David Coulthard questioned whether Hamilton still had the spark, insinuating that the seven-time champion could be going through an inevitable decline. But reducing the crisis to a personal motivation problem was to ignore the real background. The SF25 was a fundamentally unbalanced car, the product of technical decisions that did not contemplate Hamilton's pilot style. Internally, Maranello engineers recognized that chassis generated a problematic weight distribution and that aerodynamics did not offer stability in medium and high-speed curves. This structural mismatch became a psychological and technical barrier for Hamilton, who until that moment had not been able to replicate the confidence he once had with the Mercedes W11. However, the most significant was not low performance, but the way Hamilton chose to face the challenge. Instead of distancing or blaming the team, the British decided to completely integrate into the development process. He began to modify his pilot style, progressively adapting to the erratic behavior of the car. He abandoned certain typical routines of his stage in Mercedes, such as the late block stop, and began to study Leclerc data to understand how his partner found grip in sectors where he only found out sourly. This adaptation process was silent, technical, and deeply introspective. The emotional breakdown point was not the frustration on the track, but the conviction that it could still make a difference as a developer, not only as a pilot. In the background, Ferrari faced a crucial dilemma: rebuild the car for Hamilton or continue betting on a Leclerc-centered approach. The decision, as we will see later, was to bow towards a technical commitment solution. But in those first months, Hamilton lived a kind of sports purgatory. It was neither the absolute leader of the project nor a simple number two. It was a symbol in the middle of a machinery that had not yet been calibrated for its style. And that imbalance not only affected the results on the track, but also the narrative that wrapped one of the most anticipated returns in the recent history of Formula One. Given the pressure accumulated by the bad results and the growing media noise, Ferrari could not afford another weekend of disappointments. Maranello decided to activate a technical update plan on multiple fronts that, according to internal sources, constitutes one of the most aggressive redesign that has implemented the team in the middle of the season in more than a decade. The bet not only seeks to improve the performance of the SF25 for Canada, but redefine its technical philosophy for the rest of the campaign. And this is where the differentiation that the team director, Fred Vasseur, described as visible and invisible updates, comes into play, a term that quickly captured the attention of paddock analysts. Visible updates are the most obvious to the naked eye. Ferrari is expected to release a new flat background in Montreal, with a complete reconfiguration of the Venturi channel and the geometry of the ground edges. These changes are designed to generate a more stable airflow towards the diffuser, a critical area for rear aerodynamic load. The objective is to reduce the phenomenon of residual porpoising that still affected the stability of the car in long lines and high-speed areas. To this is added a new rear suspension, reviewed to offer a more predictable behavior in low-speed curves, which historically have been one of the weak points of the SF25. But where Ferrari seems to have taken a more relevant qualitative leap, it is in invisible modifications. These are not elements that are seen from the outside, but internal adjustments in the interaction between chassis, suspension, and mapping of the engine. One of the keys has been a new differential management software and traction electronics, which helps to better control power transfer at the exit of curves, especially under conditions of low adhesion. In parallel, the equipment has reviewed the configuration of the ERS system, optimizing the delivery of energy in critical accelerations. This, added to a balancing brake balance and better communication between the axes, has contributed to the car a sensation of greater mechanical cohesion, something that Hamilton had urgently requested from the first preseason test. Another silent but fundamental improvement has been the modification of motor maps to better adapt to Hamilton's driving style. During the first Great Awards, his problem was not so much the gross power, but the delivery of torque at sensitive moments, which made him lose confidence when attacking the pianos or when leaving technical zones such as girls. With the new specifications, the car promises to deliver that power more linear, allowing Hamilton to better exploit its clean layout technique and input anticipation. That is, Ferrari has not only changed components, the car has rescheduled to make it more predictable, more progressive and more related to the technical approach of the British pilot. The magnitude of the work is even more impressive when it is considered to have been developed in parallel to the calendar of large awards. Engineers have worked counter-relish, many traveling between Maranello and circuits to implement dynamic simulations with immediate results. Part of the merit also falls on the technical collaboration between departments that historically worked more isolated within Ferrari. The integration of wind tunnel data, simulator, track tests and direct feedback of the pilots has generated a synergy that was not seen since the domain days of the Schumacher era. At this point, the important thing is not only that the car improves, but that improvement is sustainable and compatible with both pilots. What Ferrari search is not a temporary solution, but setting the foundations for a platform that can climb its performance during the second half of the season. Hence, the expectation in Canada does not focus only on results, but on observing how the SF25 reacts under real race conditions, with a semi-urban track that requires braking stability, traction and outputs and a large ability to adapt in real time. Canada has always been a circuit that separates good pilots from the great strategists. With its long straight, sudden braking and narrow chicanas, the circuit Gilles Villeneuve is a perfect setting to measure not only pure speed, but also the operational efficiency of her equipment. For Ferrari, and in particular for Lewis Hamilton, this race represents something much more symbolic than a simple opportunity to add points. It is the possibility of recovering the narrative control of a season that until now has been adverse. What is at stake is not only the immediate result, but the technical validation of months of silent work, of night simulations and strategic decisions that must now prove their effectiveness in one of the most demanding scenarios of the calendar. The expectations are high because Canada meets ideal conditions to test all the key areas where Ferrari has worked. First, the new aerodynamic package and the revised suspension will be under scrutiny in slow curves, especially in the Champions Wall area, where any imbalance can be catastrophic. In addition, long intermediate straight ones will demand an optimal management of the ERS system and an efficient traction at the exit of the chicanas, two areas where the SF25 has shown fragility so far this year. But now, with a car that promises to be more progressive and predictable, a real competitiveness window that was not present in previous circuits such as Spain or Monaco Opens. In this technical context, Hamilton's role has also evolved. It is no longer simply the new stellar signing or the pilot in an adaptation phase. It has become a key piece within the Ferrari strategic decision-making process. Their comments have been used directly to recalibrate simulator algorithms. Its post-carrier analysis is now a technical tool and not just an emotional reflection, and its presence in engineering meetings has become constant. Hamilton has assumed a silent leadership role, very similar to that performed by Michael Schumacher in his early years in Ferrari, when he helped shape the team from the inside. And there is more. Within the garage, its influence has begun to reconfigure the work structure. Track engineers that were previously focused on raw data now analyze subjective inputs with more attention, validating sensations that previously went unnoticed. This has generated a more fluid collaboration climate between the two halves of the team, engineers and pilots. It is a cultural transformation that goes beyond track performance. Hamilton, with his leadership style based on experience, direct communication and emotional resilience, is helping to redefine what it means to be competitive in Ferrari in this new era. For all this, the Canada Grand Prix is not just a speed or strategy test. It is the first true examination of a new technical and human project. The objective is not to win at all costs, but to demonstrate that Ferrari has recovered the ability to evolve in real time, to adapt, to correct the course without losing identity. If the SF25 responds as expected, it will be the turning point that could revitalize not only its campaign, but the prestige of a brand that has been looking for the way back to the top years. And if Hamilton manages to translate that improvement in a solid performance, then the message will be unequivocal. Ferrari has once again a serious threat, and has done it with one of the most legendary pilots behind the wheel. The moment that Ferrari is going through with Lewis Hamilton is more than a simple season section, is a turning point that could rewrite the competitive course of Formula One in 2025. History is loaded with symbols, gestures, decisions that are not always reflected immediately in the chronometers, but that build background narratives. What we see on the track is just the surface of a much deeper process that is brewing in Maranello. The arrival of Hamilton has not only generated expectations for its talent, but for its ability to transform a team from within, to cause a silent revolution based on discipline, technical communication, and long-term vision. The implications of what happens in Canada are multiple. A positive result would not only revitalize Ferrari's options in the Builder Championship, but also consolidating Hamilton as a key figure in the technical restructuring of the equipment. This is a time to discuss, to analyze with depth and without precipitation. What do you think? Are we seeing the real resurgence of Ferrari or simply a momentary pause in the midst of the domain of other teams? Do you think Hamilton still has the margin to fight for the title, or is it too late?